Today is Monday, June 28th, 2021. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, there's a new COVID variant out that could be very deadly if you're not protected. We'll talk with Dr. Ebony Hilton about that on today's show. Also, now, where's our money segment? A lot of major advertisers had spots winning last night on the BET Awards, but how many of them are supportive of Black-owned media? Also, on today's show, a new poll shows that African Americans are in support of defunding the police and shifting of resources for police reform. Plus, the Essence Festival, virtual festival 2021 took place over the weekend. It will take place again this weekend. We'll have a recap and talk with the top editor at Essence, Corey Murray, as well as comedian Roy Wood Jr. Folks, it is time to bring the funk of Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin!
All right, folks, glad to have you here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Texas Democrats, they're suing the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, for vetoing the bill that funds thousands of state lawmakers. You might remember, of course, when the Texas Democrats walked out of the U.S. Capitol to keep a voter suppression bill from passing. Well, what happened there? The governor then got real petty, and he decided to actually veto their funding. Talk about being weak. The governor says Democrats overstepped their authority Democrats say the governor overstepped his authority. Sorry, but the governor's office says their argument is quote misleading and misguided. This is a statement released from the spokesman for the Texas governor's office. Let's go ahead and pull that up. The Constitution protects the legislative branch, as the Democrats well know, their positions, their power, and their salaries are protected by the Constitution. They can continue to legislate despite the veto. Now, folks, what we are seeing here, we're seeing Democrats try to be as aggressive as they can because they don't control levels of power in Texas. Republicans control all statewide positions, including the governor, lieutenant governor. They control both houses, the House as well as the Senate. Let's go to my panel. Ava Jones-DeWeaver, leadership strategist, joins us right now. Michael Brown, former vice chair, DNC Finance Committee. Dr. Omokongo Dibinga, professorial lecturer, School of International Service at American University. Michael, I want to start with you. Look, Democrats don't have many choices here. They just simply don't. They don't have any options. But the bottom line is what they do have is they have an opportunity to frustrate as best as they can. And this is what Democrats should be doing all across the country, using everything available in order for them to stay in control, in order for them to lead.
Yeah, first, Roland, I like your new technology. Congratulations, as you.
Well, actually, no. We're only using this. We're only using this because we are moving offices, and so we decided we got to go completely virtual this time. But we're packing up out of our old office by Wednesday. We'll be in our new offices on Thursday, and we'll be broadcasting from the new offices on Monday. So
either way, congratulations.
Appreciate it, sir.
Does that mean we get to come back in the studio, or we're going to stay virtual?
We're probably going to stay virtual for a few more months. We'll see what Dr. Ebony Hilton says later in the Today Show regarding the new COVID variant. We'll see.
Got it. So, you and I have talked about this a lot, Roland, and certainly with my fellow panelists, we've talked about it a lot, is the Democratic Party, my party, the party I care about the most. I'm glad we're starting, at least in Texas, starting to fight gunfights with a gun. Instead of always trying to figure out how to sing Kumbaya with the Republican Party. They're not into Kumbaya. They're into winning, they're into power, and they're into taking away power from people of color. So there is not going to be a Kumbaya moment. So I'm glad the Democrats in Texas took a stand against Governor Abbott, who is clearly, obviously he's off base. I guess he's a Trumper. But nonetheless, I wish we would fight like that in more parts of the country on the state level. And obviously and Speaker Pelosi has done her part to fight fire with fire. I know Senator Schumer, they supposedly play by a different set of rules in the Senate, but McConnell doesn't care about Kumbaya. So it seems that maybe we need to follow the Texas Democrats' lead.
It's all about, again, doing the best that you can with what you have, Avis. And what the Democrats have to realize across the country is you use power any way that you can, same way Republicans do. And so that's what, first of all, the people in Congress should be taking some lessons from that. But it was smart for Texas Democrats to walk out because the bottom line is that kept the bill from advancing.
Absolutely. I mean, you have to be able to fight fire with fire. And it's just very interesting to me that the dynamics of the cultures of the two parties. The Democratic Party always wants to talk about and harp on bipartisanship when the Republicans are only focused on power. And if there was any time to grow a spine and to show evidence of a backbone, it should be around this issue right here. The degree to which we are experiencing a second coming of Jim Crow now in this country cannot be overemphasized. And quite frankly, although I'm heartened by the Texan Democrats, I'm very disappointed in the Democratic Party writ large in terms of its lack of a sense of urgency around this issue. This should be a 5-alarm fire, and every mechanism at their disposal at the federal, all the way down to the state level, in all the states across the nation that this catastrophe is occurring should be happening. I am hoping that other Democrats are watching and are being inspired by these actions, because if ever there was a time to fight, the time to fight is now.
Omokongo?
Wow. The Republicans have demonstrated once again that they don't care about anybody, because one of the things that Abbott is doing right now, it's affecting Republican staff members as well. I mean, these guys who are congressmen, you know, they're not there 9 to 5. They got other ways of making money. But the average staff person who's coming in every single day, and this is their primary source of income, they're going to be affected by this. And Abbott doesn't care. McConnell doesn't care. As Michael was saying, this is about that power grab, and they will step on anybody to get it. So I commend the Democrats in Texas for doing what they're doing. But like Dr. DeWeaver said, we need more. We need more action. Last week, President Biden was asked about his whole idea about voting rights, and they said, oh, he's going to make a statement on that next week, which would be this week. Seriously? You know, we don't have time for next week. This is a daily action that they're taking to destroy our rights, and they need to step up. Like she said, writ large, they're failing us right now.
You're absolutely right that these things, look, you got to fight as best that you can. And I think that's one of the things that we're seeing take place here. Of course, the pressure continues over the weekend. Black Voters Matter. They held their rally here in D.C., had that caravan that went from, of course, the South to the nation's capital. And that has to continue. That has to go on and on and on. We have to see more of that, Avis. And look, we know what took place where Democrats were not able to end the filibuster to even get the bill discussed on the floor. But this has to be top of mind. You have these Democrat donors who say, oh, let's move on. Let's focus on infrastructure bill. But the bottom line is you can talk about that all you want to, but you're going to actually screw yourself over the next 5 to 10 years if you do not keep fighting voter suppression. That's why the Department of Justice decision late last week to file suit against Georgia is important. And again, to me, this is a part of using all of your weapons. What is the whole point of holding back? You got no choice. And so they must also go back to ramping up pressure on these corporations to say, stand with us and withhold these funds when it comes to folks who support voter suppression.
Absolutely right. It is interesting to me to see that so many people are just willing to sort of move on, turn the page. And it's also interesting to me, the fact, honestly, to be perfectly honest, I think this whole thing was bungled from the very beginning. Why were there 2 separate bills? Why wasn't there a focus on the John Lewis Act? Why wasn't there a focus on making sure that we repaired the Voting Rights Act in terms of the damage that it suffered with regards to the Supreme Court? I think bifurcating this issue like this hurt this issue. And I don't really understand why the Democrats cannot seem to grow a strategic bone in their body. It was absolutely asinine from the beginning to have it all conflated in this way in the first place. It should have been priority number 1. Unless we have our voting rights protected, they can kiss their majority in the House and the Senate goodbye. They could kiss their potential of having another Democratic administration goodbye. The Republicans are trying everything possible to undermine the voting rights of the core Democratic voters. The reason, I can't understand why the Democratic Party is so thick-skulled that they can't get. That needs to be priority number 1. It should have been priority number 1 from day one. And the fact that it still, to me, seems to be no sense of significant urgency there completely baffles the mind.
The thing there about legislative power, at the end of the day, if you're locked out, gerrymandering is going to be happening because of the census. Republicans are looking to shave off anywhere from 5 to 10 seats in Texas and Florida combined. That could be a death knell for Democrats being able to keep control of the U.S. House next year, Michael.
Absolutely. And I think part of the challenge that the good doctor mentioned, she's exactly right. And part of that is whether it's the president, whether it's the speaker, and to some extent, Majority Leader Schumer, is having to deal with this left flank and the progressive wing of the party. The reason that they did this other bill was because they wanted all that left progressive stuff in there. They couldn't get it in the John Lewis bill, so they created the new bill. But you're exactly right, Doc. They should have just stuck with the John Lewis bill. That would have protected what was going on in these states. And now you're right. There's a lot of confusion which bill to support. They needed to pass the John Lewis bill. That may have been able to pass in the Senate. A little more, it's still difficult, but more likely than the other bill, the kind of more inclusive bill that talks about obviously money and all these other things that the Republicans aren't going to go for anyway. But nonetheless, the John Lewis bill needs to pass because that will at least protect on one level what's going on in the states.
Congo, again, I go back to that gerrymandering issue, which is significant. Again, you're seeing the loss of seats in the Midwest and the East as well. We know that, of course, New York State is going to lose one seat because of less than 100 people counted during the census. That's why the census was so important. This was one of the reasons why Republicans did not really want to fund census efforts, because they said, wow, a shifting population away from white voters is going to help them out. We saw like literally in Texas, they went, oh, all good. Let's not fund any census efforts. And all of a sudden, when they realized, wait a minute, we could actually gain from this. All of a sudden, they had a late push for it. But the population increase in Texas is largely due to minority voters, namely Latinos. And Republicans are trying to claim many of those that new population in those seats. And so what people have to understand, we're actually losing power. People of color are losing power because they are basically creating districts for white voters, not new minority voters.
That's right. And we're also seeing an increase in people who are moving to places like Texas as well, because the Republicans played a long game, plain and simple. And they have a history of having the ruling over, I guess, representing the fewer amount of people, but still maintaining the same amount of power, if not more, than the Democrats. They played a long game, and the Democrats really have to realize right now that they need to have a three-pronged approach. You talked earlier about the financial aspect of it. The other two parts of it are, we have to keep pushing out the rallies, the caravans, everything going on. The Black Voters Matter. That's extremely important. We got to get people registered to vote. The voter education has to continue. But this pressure on the corporations, it also has to matter, because some of these businesses are also moving their offices to places like Texas as well. And they're not used to being called out in terms of their financial contributions and the like. And so that has to be an aspect of it that we can't lose going into 2022, because we saw that these corporations were indeed responsive for the most part when we were calling them out. But they also know that many people have short attention spans. So we have to make sure that we keep that up as well, because we have to talk about who they shouldn't be funding as well as who they should be funding. So that's also a part we can't lose sight of.
Speaking of funding, a lot of folks are being very critical of a company like Toyota, because Toyota, they're giving a lot of donations to Republicans who voted not to support the electors. And we're talking about a lot of money. We've been seeing these tweets go all around social media about this. And we actually reached out to Toyota for a statement. Keenan, if you can pull that statement up, that'd be great. So I can actually read that statement for folks. And so let me do. Here's the statement from a Toyota PAC. All right, Toyota's PAC by design is bipartisan in nature, and we contribute equally to the Democratic and Republican parties. Toyota supports candidates based on their position on issues that are important to the auto industry and the company. We do not believe it is appropriate to judge members of Congress solely based on their votes on the electoral certification. Based on our thorough review, we decided against giving to some members who, through their statements and actions, undermine the legitimacy of our elections and institutions. Now, the reason this is important is because there are a lot of Black folks who buy Toyotas. In fact, there are African Americans who sit on the board of directors of Toyota, and they also, and I've read some stories, and I've been pulling those up, where Toyota actually has the largest market share of Black voters. So the question is, Black purchasers. So the question is this, Omokongo, if that's the case, what should Black consumers be saying to Toyota as a result of who they're funding?
Black consumers need to put the pressure on Toyota. And look, I am a long-term Toyota brand. My members of my family as well. I was not aware of this till you brought this to our attention, and you can guarantee they are hearing from me. We need to let them know that, as you say, Roland, all of the time, that Black dollars matter. And whether we're talking about car loans, credit cards, whatever, Toyota makes it a point to try to have these advertisements on Kwanzaa and Black History Month and all of these things. But if you're going to support people who wanted to undermine an election that was going to take away the freedoms that you're allowed to enjoy here as a corporation in the first place. This is unacceptable. And so Toyota, you're on notice. Many of us were not aware of this. We're aware now, and we're going to be coming and knocking at your door, whether physically, whether through emails, whatever, because this is unacceptable to support people who are actively working to take away the rights of your customers. That we can't stand for that.
Avers, I think you got to make it an issue. People who did not support the 2020 election.
Oh yeah, you definitely have to make it an issue. The beautiful thing is that we know, we know now. And if there's one thing that we understand as a community, it's about organizing. And this is really about us putting Toyota on notice, as was mentioned, that we have substantial financial power that we can flex. And as we have flexed it your way in the past, we can flex it against you in the future. This really needs to be a full out PR disaster for Toyota. And so everything that we can do in terms of social media and also in terms of our buying choices, it needs to reflect our dissatisfaction and disdain with this idea of supporting people that not only were seeking to overturn an election, but was doing it based on lies that specifically focused on states that were largely decided on the votes of African Americans. This is a complete attack against the respect due to the Black America voting power. And we need to make sure that Toyota understands that this is something we're not going to forget, and they're going to have a price to pay for it.
That's right.
Omakongo. Excuse me. I'm sorry, Michael.
Yeah, I certainly co-sign on everything that both of my fellow panelists said. I think, and I'm glad, and Roland, that's why your show is such a service. You bring these issues up so then we can then talk about them and other people can talk about them. One of my sons drives a Toyota. Obviously, if I was aware of what you just said before he purchased it, I would have suggested maybe he select another vehicle. And I think, but that's where the economics will be so important because, for example, how will, whether it's magazines, these other charitable organizations, when Toyota calls and says, I want to buy ad space or I want to be a contributor, it's so hard for companies of color to say no to those dollars. The discipline comes saying, you know what? No. I understand if you wanted to support some folks because they wanted to overturn the Electoral College because there was some actual evidence, but there wasn't. It was, as Dr. mentioned, it was based on lies. So I'm curious about their kind of U.S. operations, their U.S., frankly, their lobbyists here in town, whoever they got the advice from why this would be a good idea. Because the only way you change behavior, especially with folks on the Hill, is you impact their bank account. And when they see that Toyota is now not supporting their golf tournament or their dinner or their gala, then all of a sudden they say, well, you know what? Maybe I need to change my view on that position, on that issue.
Well, first of all, you're absolutely right. And so, again, there are a lot of companies who came out there after the insurrection saying, oh, we're not going to be supporting. Then they quietly begin to give money back with their political action committees. And so we should be monitoring that as well. Speaking of monitoring, we're doing that when it comes to Where's Our Money segment. We've been frozen out.
Facing an extinction level event.
We don't fight this fight right now, you're not going to have black on you. All right, folks, last night was the BET Awards, and really, I think I would call it BET Commercial Fest interspersed with a few performances. There were a ton of commercials that were on the BET Awards last night. A lot of major companies were spending money. BET no longer, of course, is black owned. They're black targeted. And so we're going to roll through. I want to show y'all, again, all the corporations that dropped ads last night on the BET Awards. You had Axios, Capital One, State Farm, Apple, Nissan, Procter and Gamble, Macy's, Burger King, Warner Brothers, Pepsi, Columbia Pictures, T-Mobile, Sprite, M&M's, Kellogg's, Walmart, Little Caesars, Verbo, Ashley Home Furniture, Intuit QuickBooks, Red Bull, Universal Pictures, McDonald's, Amazon, Facebook, Coors Light, Garnier Serum Cream, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Geico. You also had a number of different, I don't think that's all of them right there, folks. You had a number of different makers. First of all, you had Snuggle, Invisalign, Absolute, Paramount Plus, L'Oreal. You also had, let's see here, Pizza Hut. Let's see, I got, like I said, I mentioned Procter & Gamble. You had Dove. You also had, let me go through here, Facebook, Macy's. Let's see, the other companies, like I said, you had Modelo, T-Mobile, Apple, Disney. You had, of course, Marvel, of course, Disney makes those movies. And then you had the drugs Restasis, Dupixent. You also had one of the drugs as well. There was one more that I missed. I don't see it on my list here. I can find it here. Entresto. You had Bounty. Let's see, Doritos, Ford, LinkedIn, Domino's, AT&T, Netflix, Popeyes, Target, Coors Light, Charmin, Pampers, and there you go. So those are all the sponsors there. Now, why am I doing that? Because I've been posting the logos on my social media and then asking the question, all right, how many of them are supportive of Black-owned media? Now, see, that's a lot of money. In fact, Ad Age dropped a story over the weekend that said the demand was so high for BET that they added 30 minutes to the show.
Wow.
30 minutes to the show for the advertisers. Now, they also said they had such a strong response when it comes to performances. That was the money thing. A 3.5-hour awards program. That's what you saw. And so joining me now is Todd Brown with the Urban Edge. He, of course, they've launched HBCU League Pass. Glad to have him on the show. So, Todd, this is a major deal here. And again, what this says is corporate America, they ain't got a problem trying to get money from Black people. They want to sell their wares to Black people. They're fully in support of BET and the award show because they're Black targeted. But we keep arguing, are all of these companies supportive of Black-owned companies?
Yeah, Roland, I think what you're saying is important for two reasons. One is it shows that they know how to purchase Black. And that question is only put because the questions that we get every day from advertising agencies and from brands is, are your platforms safe for my brand environment? Are you providing the kind of innovation and connection with the audience? And moreover, are you going to denigrate the messages that I'm trying to send? And a lot of people would argue that those questions should have been asked around the show we just saw, because of course it was at the fringe of a lot of entertainment. But the bigger thing is brands overextended themselves to check a black box on a white platform. And we're seeing very little of that spin, lots of meetings, lots of talks for Black owned. And so we're driving a bigger conversation, Roland, and you've been part of that conversation in a major way around categories of spin and categories of consumption. And then when you look at the consumption and all the key categories that were represented during the BET Awards, you should see that same level of flow to Black owned media. And as we said in our collective, we're not seeing that in any material way. We're seeing drips and drabs here and there, but we're not seeing the level of commitment that you're making to iHeart with blackface on white media. We're not seeing the level of commitment that you just had the exuberance on during the BET Awards. By the way, not just the show, the pre-show and the post-show. All the inventory was fully stacked. And so we know they know how to do it. Now we need to see them and hold them to account for doing it on Black-owned platforms where we control the narrative, we control the message and we control the images that we are putting out and the stories that we're putting out to our people. All those things are important because it's not just the ad support, it's the ability for them to tell our story and to paint our narrative, which is also very impactful.
And when we talk about that, again, there were a number of companies that I mentioned. Also, I think I did not Coca-Cola, Walmart. I mentioned McDonald's, tech companies as well, a number of them. And so one of the things, so what I did, Todd, was I've been posting these on social media, LinkedIn, all of these platforms, and in fact, Procter & Gamble clearly saw our post and then reached out to us saying, "Hey, want to link y'all up with the right people to connect with." And I purposely said this here, Coca-Cola. They're one of our sponsors for our Essence Throwback. And I said, I gave them credit for that, their announcement of their spin with Black and other minority media. Walmart, we are having conversations with them. We have not closed the deal with them. I said we certainly are looking forward to a long-term partnership with all of these folks. But we need to be very, very specific with the companies that are not responding. I fired off an email to an executive at Apple asking about their Black-owned spin. Same thing in all these companies. These companies have Black board members, and there are people, and a lot of these companies have refused to even publicly commit to a Black-owned media spin. And we need to be demanding this. And for the person who is watching, who needs to understand the difference between advertisers supporting BET when they were Black-owned and advertisers now supporting BET when they are owned by Viacom CBS, not Black-owned. Brett Pulley, in his book, The $1 Billion Bet, the unauthorized biography of BET and Bob Johnson, when Viacom CBS bought BET, Todd, they were shocked to discover how much BET was getting for a 30-second ad compared to what MTV was getting for the same 30-second ad. To explain that to our audience,
Sure.
The difference.
I think it's important because it wasn't just a BET phenomenon. So I had the pleasure of being executive vice president and group publisher of Ebony and Jet magazine. And what we find is that generally in Black publications, we get 78% less than the market rate, and we get 95% less than the market volume. And what that really means is that if an ad rate at BET is $1,500 an hour for a 30-second spot, that same ad on any Viacom network was fetching $8,500. And if you really think about that, Roland, what that means is that instead of $3 billion, which was the closeout price for Bob Johnson when he sold BET to Viacom, that price should have been on the order of 78% higher. And if you think about that, that's about a $15 billion market cap. So he could have sold a third of his company if he was getting market rates. And also for the advantage of Viacom, they can pay off BET very quickly because as soon as they took over, the new rate for BET happened to start to be the market rate of $8,500. Moreover, they even got further distribution. So the idea of the Black rate at Ebony and Jet, which was generally 15 to 20K a page, and in case of Ebony, 7,000 a page. In case of Jet, 7,000 a page. The like white publications were getting 150 to 200,000 a page. That's the difference between paying your writers on time, being able to have the best stock in paper, being able to pay for the mail, and being able to support your staff and have a White House correspondence in DC covering our stories. So that same problem with Black media that we talk about all the time, Roland, is a point of us getting our reasonable fair share. And what we find is that share for Black targeted is very small compared to total market, but the Black owned share of that is fractionally smaller than that Black targeted. So the new move, and I talked to you about this, is the move is that we've created a space called Black owned, but who's benefiting directly in the early days is Black targeted, because you're seeing BET be a safe, creative, easy conversation for white brands to have with each other about Black properties, which is exactly what happened when all of those good people went over to BET and Viacom and found themselves flush with cash because they were getting the market rate for the first time. And so that it's subtle and it's complicated, but it's not. Blacks are discounted by 78%, and we get the lowest volume of purchasing, and that's problematic. And that's why Black media is in such dire straits across the board. Can you hear me?
And there are people, Ty. There are people who have said to me, well, you know, why are y'all being so aggressive? Why are y'all doing this? Why do y'all have to be so loud about it? Why you have to be so in your face about it? Well, this is simple. If I got no money last year, and I got no money last month, and I got no money last week, and I got no money on yesterday, it's a good bet I'm not going to get any money tomorrow. So I might as well say something.
Well, it's worse than that. In my business case, I'm focused on HBCUs around sports, around the bands, around engagement with the culture, and around gaming. And if you look at the economics of an HBCU athletic program versus the economics of the University of Texas, that makes $100 million profit on Black bodies, largely on their football team, which funds everything else they do. If you look at the University of Florida, matter of fact, my brother attended Grambling University as a freshman in 1967. When Grambling played against Morgan State at Yankee Stadium, he was a sophomore. There were more professional athletes that came out of Grambling and Texas Southern than Notre Dame. And so the idea of them understanding how to monetize Blackness is a perfect example of why we have to speak to Black equity and ownership, which never happens relative to media, and the fact that they know how to monetize our Black bodies, which I think we saw a major display of during the BET Awards. So this idea of why we're loud and verbose about it, we know that silence is killing our potential to tell our story and to have a voice, and moreover, to have basic businesses that otherwise will be harvested and what I think is a form as abusive as slavery, because it's a slow death, and we're awake and we're alive and we're aware and we can read and we know that this doesn't work. However, we participate in our silence by answering the question, Roland, of being patient when they already showed us during the upfronts that they see us, they hear us, they just can't quite get to writing a check to us.
So let's talk about that upfront. So what the audience doesn't realize is that all of these media ad agencies that represent all of these companies, and we're talking about nearly $300 billion being spent, $300 billion. So the TV upfronts, they make these presentations, the networks explain all of their programming, and essentially they negotiate over 3 or 4 weeks with these ad agencies and the companies for the entire year. You and I have participated in, and all of a sudden this year, they created these Black upfronts and these minority upfronts because they got pressure from Byron Allen and from us and so many others. But here's the deal. We've done the upfronts, several of them, and other than our partnership with Coca-Cola, that's the only one that we've signed, and that didn't even come through the upfronts. I've actually been a Coca-Cola VIP and have worked with them for the past decade, and that was through my relationships with them. So the reality is, even though we went through all of these presentations, we haven't closed a single deal, and we're still waiting. You know, all the television networks have all closed.
Problematic, Roland. So the idea of your patience and them rewarding you with a meeting, and you remember we submitted a couple of RFPs before the upfronts, and the agencies were very excited to say, Roland, you were actually considered this year. We really thought about inviting you to the final rounds. You're not going to make any money. You're not going to get any allocation. So the reward for the agency so far has been, we hear you and we see you, and we had a meeting with you. And as you and Byron like to say off the record, is we cannot spend meetings. We cannot spend nice thank yous. So we're asking and demanding and saying, where's the beef relative to this issue? And we know that they have quote unquote intentionality, but you can't spend intentionality. We've got to see them lean into our businesses, support us, and invest in the cultivation of our stories by us. Because we have shown again that they know how to do it when it's white-owned Black media, whether it's iHeart, whether it's BET, whether it's Black radio that's owned by white members, and that's the struggle. It's really an issue, Roland, where I can't quite see you in my economic equation unless you're just consuming my products and not complaining or making any statements about it.
And the people at home are trying, and I get these people hit me up, man, but we got to build our own. I'm like, y'all, that's what the hell we're trying to do. But this business runs on advertising dollars.
Period.
That's how Comcast and NBC, and that's how Fox News and CNN, that's how all these networks are multi-billion-dollar corporations, because they're getting the advertising dollars. And what I need black people to understand is they're getting the money because they're spending your money. You're buying, you eat, you drink at Coca-Cola, you eat at McDonald's, you shop at Target, you're using Facebook, you're using Intuit QuickBooks, you're buying Bounty, you're using Charmin, you're using you're using Snuggles, you're using all of these products. So they love our money. And again, there are companies that made announcements. McDonald's made an announcement. We're meeting with them. We're going to see what that spend is going to be. Coca-Cola made their announcement. There are 20 companies tied with the agency Group M that made their announcement. But here's the problem. There are probably another 80 to 100 companies that Group M represents that did not commit to even a 2% black-owned spend. And so, okay, that's great that 20 companies under Group M represents are going to spend 2%. They committed to spending 2% of their marketing advertising budget with black-owned media. 2%. That's it. I'm sorry. It should be 5 to 10. But the fact that only 20 of their companies agreed to that, meaning the other 60, 80, or 100 would not even commit to 2%. General Motors announced their plan. I have not heard one publicly from Toyota or Ford or Chrysler or BMW or Nissan or Hyundai or Honda. Have you?
No, Roland, we have to break this down, I think, in a very elementary way. We're talking about $289 billion according to their numbers. And you're talking about black media, black-owned media, getting in the neighborhood of 100 million of 289 billion. And we're talking about the fact that we drive entertainment, engagement, creative. And again, the new narrative is black creatives. The new narrative is black people in the commercials, black people being part of the dialogue. It's not about black ownership and equity, because that portion has historically been severely discounted and put into damn near receivership. So the idea of the conversation that you're driving is, now that you've stirred up the hornet's nest and you have the potential for the awakening of black purchasing to be aimed and weaponized in such a way that we get black jobs from these companies, we get black investments, we get black businesses, we get black equity, is a very scary thing. And so I think folks are waiting, Roland, for this moment to pass. They're waiting for this conversation to be about me and you trying to enrich ourselves, as opposed to us trying to get 13% of $300 billion, which, by the way, is $39 billion, as opposed to 100 million. And so if you do that, then guess what? There's jobs for the HBCU students that are focused on media. There's jobs for production. There's jobs for catering. There's building. Otherwise, we find ourselves where we are today, Roland, largely outside of the ability to control our stories and our narratives. And let's be clear, everything that they show on those networks are indicated and managed largely at the top by white owners. And you have black workers who have to manage within that reality. And I saw several times, and I found it shocking that most black entertainers were thanking BET for an opportunity to appear on white-owned media, to have the white media commercialize them, as opposed to the reality that BET is 100% owned by Viacom. And so if we own that, then we can really control and drive those conversations in a powerful way. And I think a lot of folks think, that because we show up in spaces that we actually have control or ability to impact the economics. Right now, we're in a consumer consumption, downloading, not uploading media. And we have to shift that by continuing to beat this drum. And I'm happy to be able to do that. But it's something that is uncomfortable, because everyone is used to not thinking about this as we're being commercialized.
Avis, I got these idiots on YouTube who really don't know what the hell they're talking about. You got these folks who got, like, one person goes, if you get reparations, we will be fine. No, Charles Jameson, you're an idiot. That's not true. You also got this other idiot, Dre Smith. Roland, is this just about black media, or is it really about black progress and corporations, or you just want white corporations to make your pockets fatter? Well, dumbass Dre Smith, if you were paying attention, we're talking about black-owned media. I didn't say just my company or just Todd's company. It's black-owned media. Second of all, as Todd said, if any of these idiots want to listen, if you actually fund, if we get the investment in black-owned media, Avis, then guess what? We get to hire black producers, black reporters, black graphic designers, black set makers, black lighting people, black art folks, black folks who edit, all of that. It's the entire. So we're not sitting here seeing few of us in mainstream media. We could literally go out and create these programs. We could actually have partnerships with HBCUs that have school of communications and say, we have jobs available for you. That's the whole point. If we go from getting annually $100 million collectively, and all of a sudden we're getting $10 billion collectively, now imagine the sizes of our companies. And this right here, this discussion we're having right here, for the stuck on stupid people who can't pay attention, and for these advertisers out there, they have to understand these are largely white folks in corporations giving money to nearly 97, 98% white ad agencies who are then giving anywhere from 0 to 1% of money to black-owned media. And then folks wonder why our businesses are small.
Absolutely. I mean, I found this discussion to be so riveting and powerful. I was sitting here taking notes. Okay. Here you just mentioned $209 billion spent in media.
No. 289 billion. You locked off 80 billion.
I can't read my own handwriting.
289 billion. And by next year, Todd, it's supposed to be 322 billion.
322 billion. Your number doesn't change though. You're still at 100 million.
And still only 100 million. I mean, that's just a teeny tiny fraction of all the money that's being spent out there. And what I thought was especially intriguing and just powerful to me, to show you the degree to which this discrimination is intentional, was when you had the discussion around the fact that when BET was black owned, we were getting the black wages, right? But as soon as it was sold to Viacom, all of a sudden the money goes to Viacom that wasn't given to the very same company when it was black owned. You know, I think people really need to understand what's going on here. This is intentional disenfranchisement of black owned companies in terms of being able to fully fund them in a way that would allow them to be able to grow and flourish. Here's what we also know. And the third point I'll make really quickly is this. We all know that black people are the creators of creativity that the world craves. And all of my travels all around the world, the portion of American culture that the rest of the world loves and craves, not to mention Americans too, are the things that we created. So the fact that you have black people being used, and our talents, our abilities, our creativity is being used and monetized for white-owned companies that are targeting their wares to black people. But when black-owned companies try to lift up our voices, our creativity, our genius, we're getting slave wages. That's a problem with that. That's a real problem with that. And so I'm hoping that people will understand the gravity of this conversation. What this is saying is that they want our genius, but they don't want to pay, quote unquote, massa, but refuse to pay us.
This is why, Omakongo, when we were in Tulsa, they had the Tulsa Basker Commission. That was the city commission. They had this economic summit that was supposed for black people. And they had all these sponsors. I'm going to try to find it in a second. And we discussed it on our show. And it was all these sponsors. And first thing I said was, Omakongo, how many of these sponsors actually are supporting black-owned businesses? Don't sit here and be the sponsor of a summit if you ain't spending money with black people, because you ain't practicing what you supposedly are preaching. And I said, you got to call these people out. I told the black-owned media in Oklahoma, you got to call them out. And here's the deal. Let me be real clear, Omakongo. Those businesses that we have engaged in conversations with, I'm going to publicly give you credit for that. Those companies that sign deals with us, I am going to say you are supporting black-owned media. But what I'm not going to do is give folks a pat on the back who issue a press release and then expect me to call it a transformational, wonderful, amazing plan. I told General Motors directly, hey, I will praise you when y'all cut the check. But you ain't cut the check. Go ahead.
That's right. It's like the great philosopher Memphis Bleak said, don't check for me unless you got a check for me. Right. At the end of the day, these guys have to put up or shut up. We've seen the statements of supporting Black Lives Matter. We've seen the statements of we value diversity and the like. But where is the money? We're talking about ownership. We're talking about legacies. And to have these conversations about hundreds of millions versus billions of dollars, it is high time that whether we're talking about people who run media entities like you, whether we're talking about our celebrities who are on these networks as well, whether we're talking about our musicians, whoever, we have to be at a point right now that we need to say, we need to do more. You need to start putting your money where your mouth is and stop looking at us as just as objects to build up your own wealth. And quite honestly, we in our own community, we have to smarten up right now. We have these conversations that you two are having and that you have on a daily basis. We in our own spheres, whatever platforms we have to do what we can do to maximize the number of people who are hearing this, because the average cat on the street doesn't know this. And they don't understand that we're being taken advantage of. So we have to keep calling them out. And once they see that we're starting to wise up, to really start to understand that you only value our bodies. Look what's happening with our sister in the hammer throwing competition, right? People are saying, just shut up and play. And she's like, no, I'm an activist. I'm more than that. Once we start doing that in large numbers and speaking up, these companies are gonna have to come around. And if we don't do it, they're going to keep undervaluing us. And so we really have to step up this campaign to make sure that money is coming to us, because this is about legacy. This is about ownership. This is about reducing that wealth gap. And we can't do it if we keep playing footsie with these guys. Like you said, we got to call them out. We can't just say, oh, we're just happy that you showed up at our event. We're just happy that you put up a flyer or a poster. We need more. We need partnerships. And that's what you're doing, Roland. Coca-Cola and the like, you're talking partnerships. And we need that right now more than talk.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go to Michael, then I'm going to go to Michael, then I'm going to close out with Todd. And Michael, this is why I need all the people who follow us on social media to comment on those posts on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Fanbase. So those companies see 100, 200, 300 responses, people liking those items as well. This is what we have to do, because again, this goes directly, and I'm just going to get just real straight. Michael, the people need to understand something. But people need to realize this here. Is Michael still there, folks? I'm not seeing Michael. Okay, there he is. Okay. So this is the thing that Michael, you people understand. I was a contributor at CNN for 6 years. That meant I was paid. When you turn on MSNBC and CNN and they have these contributors or analysts, they're getting paid by the networks. Well, if we're able to generate more money, I can actually pay folks on our panel. They can actually get paid, which means they're also supporting their families. See, that's what I think people don't get. We're trying to connect the dots here for people to realize that there is a multi-billion-dollar system, an ecosystem of advertising and media that exists, that we are helping to fund, that we're not getting any, that we're getting little money back, and they're sitting there just cashing and making billions off of our support. And then I got black folks saying, oh, why you have to go through all of this? Because please show me another damn way that exists, because Todd knows we have presented numerous proposals, one company that reached out to us today, we reached out to 9 months ago. We don't really buy news shows. But then when I called them out, now they want to talk to us. Well, guess what? I guess the damn call out works.
Well, first of all, fascinating conversation. And I don't want to take too much time away from your closeout with Todd, because I pretty much co-signed with everything that my fellow panelists said. I have a question, if you don't mind, Roland, for Todd, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, Todd, have you done any kind of market research? Because clearly, as fascinating as this conversation is, how many people, particularly in the Black community, know that BET is now not Black owned? Now, obviously, I know a lot of people know that, Bob and Sheila Johnson made a lot of money on a sale. But those are people that may kind of either be in the business or just understand that happened. But how many average Joe folks know that BET is not owned by Black people?
Well, Mr. Brown, I think you said a couple things there that are important. One is we have been socialized from claiming things from our block that we rent on, to our street, to our hood, to claiming BET as an equity owner. And I think Mr. Johnson and Sheila made $3 billion. That was great, unless they should have made $15 billion. So I'm happy to go from whatever number they were to $3 billion. I think largely this is not a matter of research or awareness. We know these things. We just don't want to process it because we can identify and connect with the shine and not have to process the abuse. So we're talking about $1/3 of $1 trillion industry, and we're talking about Blacks largely being erased from it, other than employees and window dressing. And we're talking about a conversation which has everything to do with cover, which Black employees give. And I used to be an employee of Comcast and Viacom and other big media companies. But the world shifted when I went into the Black space, because then you really start to see what the reality is. The reality is that we don't have an ability, other than our call on our community, to stop the behavior that's participating in our own demise. And so that's the big conversation. Where we get distracted at is diversity, inclusion, BIPOC, minorities, dinners. Matter of fact, and I say this every time I'm on, one of our large partners asked me, what gives you the right to launch an HBCU League Pass for sports, bands, gaming, and culture? Did the UNCF give you permission to have the audacity to do that? Because we give our money to the UNCF. So I asked them, when you're talking to other groups, do you get permission from their advocacy groups in order for them to launch their business? The short answer is no. So we have to get out of this uncomfortable conversation of awareness into this conversation of putting a light on where the issue is, and forcing this uncomfortable conversation where we get out of the diversity, inclusion, dinner buy-in, and those people in the advocacy groups who are in the position to give cover for this crime, they need to be exposed as well. And I see here with the Democratic National Committee, they're also guilty of this. We had the same conversation at all levels of media, which I think is impactful and uncomfortable, because no one is standing up and saying, stop it, do the right thing by our community. And by the way, giving us a job is completely different than giving us an opportunity to create jobs for our community.
Thank you.
So to everybody out there, understand, I'm going to be posting every single company that took an ad out on the BET Awards. I'm going to post those images on all my social media, and I'm asking the question. And this is what I asked. Very simple to each one of them, and this is the language, you'll see it, is what is your annual Black-owned media spend? Have you made a commitment to join other companies in making a specific spend with Black-owned media? Who is your ad agency? And are you holding that agency accountable and making them work with not Black targeted companies, but Black owned? Those are the questions and then I'm saying, Roland Martin, Unfiltered Representatives, will be reaching out to you tomorrow to get answers to these questions. That's what we're doing. And we want to get those answers. Todd Brown, brother, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Tell folks where they can download the HBCU app.
Yes, HBCU League Pass is available on all streaming platforms: Apple, Roku, Android, Apple TV. Everywhere you can get a streaming signal, you can download HBCU League Pass. We're going to be the premier source for live games, bands, sporting, talk, and gaming. We believe HBCUs need the opportunity to have their experience in the lexicon as opposed to just when you get a chance to physically live be there. That's what we're about. We're about bringing that energy, and you can get us on all streaming platforms.
All right, then, Todd Brown, we sure appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.
Folks, got to go to a break. When we come back on Roland Martin Unfiltered, we'll talk with Dr. Ebony Hilton about this new COVID variant and why you must not play games, folks, and stay vigilant when it comes to your mask, keeping your hands clean. Yeah, we're not out of the wilderness yet. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. We'll be back in a moment.
I believe that people our age have lost the ability to focus the discipline on the art of organizing.
The challenges, there's so many of them and they're complex, and we need to be moving to address them. But I'm able to say, watch out, Tiffany. I know this road.
That is so freaking dope.
Hello, I'm Nina Turner. My grandmother used to say, all you need in life are 3 bones. The wishbone to keep you dreaming, the jawbone to help you speak truth to power, and the backbone to keep you standing through it all. I'm running for Congress because you deserve a leader who will stand up fearlessly on your behalf. Together, we will deliver Medicare for all, good jobs that pay a living wage, and bold justice reform. I'm Nina Turner, and I approve this message.
George Floyd's death hopefully put another nail in the coffin of racism.
You talk about awakening America. It led to a historic summer of protest.
I hope our younger generation don't ever forget that nonviolence is soul force.
Right.
What's up? This is Aldous Hodge, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Hey, everybody, it's your girl, Sherry Shepherd, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Hey, Roland.
That's Tim Story, director of Shaft. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. What up, y'all? This is Method Man, Mighty Wu-Tang Clan. You watching Uncle Roland Martin, and the show is Unfiltered. Make sure y'all tune in. Laura Ingram, you suck.
I believe that.
All right, folks. Now there's a new COVID variant that is causing significant problems all across the country, which means you've got to stay vigilant. The White House is trying their best to warn people of that. Joining us right now is Dr. Ebony Hilton. Of course, she's been on the show many times with the University of Virginia, anesthesiologist. Glad to have her back as she is trying to get her Twitter account verified as best as possible. And so I'm trying to help her out, y'all. She was sort of complaining earlier. She mentioned all of these media outlets she's been on, CBS, NPR, and USA Today. And I'm kind of like, well, you might get your check mark if you mention you would Roland Martin Unfiltered. But I'm just saying.
I did say your name is right. You know what? And see, this is why y'all see how he does me every single time. How are you, Roland?
I'm fine. I'm fine.
You look like you're tanned. You been out? You been out? You look like you're tanned.
Well, you know, I'm not afraid of the heat like you are. Yeah. If y'all follow her Twitter feed, y'all know what I'm talking about. She's afraid to get a little toasty. All right.
Let's get. When I say it was hot, it was hot as Hades outside. I tried to go outside and work out. I almost passed out.
You done?
Yes.
All right. Let's talk about this COVID variant. Stuff is opening up. Folks are running around. They think the world is just wide open. And you keep saying, man, y'all better settle the hell down and stay vigilant. What's up?
Settle down. I mean, so we know where were you to start? The CDC changed our mask guidance over, it seems like a month and a half ago now. And I said immediately, I think this is very premature. One, because they were basing it on data, real life data, that was largely based on what was happening in Israel. And what we know is that Israel, by April the 3rd or 4th, had over 60% of their entire population vaccinated. We still aren't to 60% today. And even with them getting that to April the 3rd or 4th, they didn't lift their mask mandate until April the 18th. They still said we still need to be vigilant and get as many people as possible vaccinated before we say, okay, maybe we can take off our mask. And guess who's now stepping back on that? Well, those very same countries, because of the Delta variant. The Delta variant, if we go back, we had the UK variant, that's the Alpha variant. We had the Beta, that's the South African. We had the Gamma, that's down in actually in South America. And now we have the Delta variant. And the difference between the UK variant and Delta variant is that the Delta variant can actually evade the immune system, meaning that it makes our vaccines, although yes, our vaccines are still effective in keeping you most likely alive, that we're seeing more people actually get sick though. And to give an example, I have a friend who received her last dose of Pfizer vaccine on February 12th. Her husband actually was fully vaccinated back in January because he's a healthcare worker. And she traveled for work and unfortunately picked up COVID-19, likely on an airplane going to Atlanta, Georgia, but picked up COVID-19 the first week of June. And she presented with chest pain that she had to go to the emergency department because she was in such discomfort, loss of taste, loss of smell, and she infected her husband. 5 days later, he started to have symptoms, and now he has achy joints, and both of them had COVID positive tests. So this is not just symptoms, but this is literally confirmed testing. So we cannot lose our guard or think that we have control over this thing yet. The virus is continuously trying to outsmart us, and we have to be 2 steps ahead, which means until our numbers are down, until we see our cases literally go down to 0, like they do in New Zealand, right? We got to keep our masks, wash your hands, don't go into these large crowds, to these concerts that I'm seeing pop up everywhere. We're going to really go into this fall in a very precarious situation. So, yeah.
Okay, so if we've been vaccinated, but we've been told, hey, you can take your mask off. You don't have to do these things. So what the hell? Now, granted, a lot of airlines, I've flown in the last 8 days to New York, to LA, Chicago. The airlines to require you to wear your mask. But I can tell you, Ebony, it was a lot of folks rolling up on me in Chicago, no mask, LA, no mask. Folks are having events. Very few people are walking around with masks. I don't see folks with a Perel or they hand sanitizer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's what's happening.
And what we're seeing is that although again people have to realize what we report nationally as far as numbers can mean absolutely nothing in your neighborhood, because what we're seeing, U.S. cases, yes, they're down, but they're up by 68% in Oklahoma, up by 45% in Missouri, 42% in Arizona. And it's all because if you're looking at where vaccine uptake is higher, we're seeing that those cases are staying pretty well in the Northeast, doing pretty well. But down south, where you're struggling to get people vaccinated in Alabama, for instance, we're seeing the COVID cases number go up. And then what I urge the CDC and the World Health Organization to do is to be transparent, to say, yes, vaccines do a fantastic job at keeping you alive, but that is not the only consequence of COVID-19. We know there are many people who have survived COVID-19 who now can have difficulty walking a full block around the neighborhood, and they're 30, 40 years old. They should be able to do that. We have people who have survived COVID-19 who now have COVID brain, where they can't hold a string of thoughts. So they have basically a severe form of just attention deficit. And that's one of my friends. She has now word finding difficulties. We have people who are survivors of COVID-19 who now have chronic pain issues. Their back and their joints are hurting. That's where her husband now has. And it's only been for 3 weeks, and I'm hoping that will subside and that their symptoms will get a little bit better. But it's been 3 weeks of them having chest pain. It's been 3 weeks of them having joint pains. And the thought is, when will this end? I have another mentee. She's in her 20s. She was infected with COVID-19 in January, and she still to this day cannot taste or smell. Now, what does that mean when we now have studies out of Stanford that shows that people who have died from COVID-19, who weren't necessarily coming into the hospital because of neurologic deficits, but when they did an autopsy, their brains are resembling those of persons with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. And I talked to you about this last year. Before we had studies to show it, my question was, what are the long-term consequences of people who say I lost my taste and smell? That means that it infected your brain cells. There has to be something that's linked to that. Yeah, and so it's just simply not worth the risk of going to a concert without a mask on and having fun for 2 hours if it means for the rest of your life you're going to have this string of impairment. So.
All right, then. Well, Dr. Ebony Hilton, it's always great to have you on the show. When you headed back to Charleston, South Carolina?
Next month.
Next month. Well,
it's good stop consulting so we can help save the world. No, I'm just joking. Yeah, I have a business meeting. So.
All right. Well, I'm going to be actually there, I think July 8th through the 11th. So I'm going to,
golfing?
Yeah, I'll be teeing up with my man Darius Rucker. So we're going to hit a little golf. So
I just want to know if Reese, did Black Women Views, we're going to be on Twitter to ask about, were we invited to this? We've been promised resorts. We've been promised.
No. Hold on. Let me correct something. You have not been promised. You have suggested that I somehow, somewhere, someday, in real life, which I think is imaginary, said I was going to give y'all an all expense paid a respite at a resort. But you clearly had an edible.
No, I don't do no, sir. Do a handstand. I don't do drugs, but what I do is show up, and I will show up on a golf course, and we will have this resort. So I thank you in advance, and may God bless you.
Y'all love throwing God in there. All right, Ebony, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank y'all. Y'all have a good one.
All right, thanks a lot. All right, folks, let's go to our next story here. Michael Omakongo and Avis. And this is pretty interesting. Now, a couple weeks ago, we talked about a report that was done where the Collective PAC said they did polling that was done by a Black-owned firm, Dr. Cohen Belcher, that said Black people were against defund the police. Now, Terrence Woodbury at Hit Strategies has a report that shows Black folks' view on defunding the police and police reform. It's a little different. Terrence Jones is right now. Is Terrence there?
Hey,
all right,
Roland,
Terrence, how you doing?
How's it going, brother? Thanks for having me on.
All right, then. So we're going to ask you some questions here. We've got Michael Brown, Omakongo Dominga, Dr. Avis Jones DeWeaver, and so we're going to chat about this here. So let's talk about this polling data. You've been spending lots of time out in the field talking to Black folks. And Democrats have been saying, they've been getting killed. People don't want against defund the police, even Black folks. But you say that's not necessarily true.
That's exactly right, Roland. Attitudes about policing and defund have been evolving in the Black community since last summer, since the summer of unrest, when we really saw folks taken to the streets to express frustration after George Floyd. And for the first time, our recent polling of Black Track poll, a poll that we conduct every month, shows 53% of Black people support defunding the police. And even more interesting is when we ask if they supported reallocating resources away from the police and overhauling police, 67% support. And this is across all groups, Roland, across Black men, Black women, under 50, over 50, even Black conservatives. A majority of Black conservatives say that they support reallocating resources away from the police and overhauling. And so I think it's incumbent upon Democrats now to figure out how they're going to start talking about this, and even more important, how they're going to start getting it done.
Is that because Black people know what defund the police is? They understand the difference, and they're not falling for the okie doke from Republicans? Is that what the difference here is?
Well, that's a part of the problem here, Roland, is that we are allowing Republicans to define defund. Thankfully, activists have done a very good job. Organizations like Campaign Zero, Color of Change, and Black Lives Matter Global Network have done a very good job of redefining defund, so that Black people do not think that the only outcome is abolishing the police, But at this point, the Democratic Party really has to lean into this. Now that their most loyal voters are evolving on this issue and are saying that this is what they expect, then it's now incumbent on Democrats to figure out which elements of defund are actually appealing to people, and to start redefining this issue. The fact of the matter is, Roland, defund is going to be a huge part of the 2022 cycle. We already see Republicans in races like the congressional race in New Jersey too, beginning to lean into and paint Democrats as anti-police. So if Democrats ignore this, or even worse, begin to treat our activists like they are our opposition, then it doesn't mean that the community that the community doesn't hear about defund. It means they're only hearing about it from Republicans.
Michael Brown.
Terrence, I understand the great work you're doing. Congratulations, by the way, on hit strategies. In polling, and as a former elected official, obviously we rely on polling quite a bit. Why do you think there's such a dichotomy between a whole lot of folks that seem to say, yeah, defund the police, and then people that say, oh, absolutely not, we need police to protect our neighborhoods? There's just such a difference. Why do you think that is? Because it's so strange to see some. I mean, it's one thing if it was 1 or 2 or even 5 point difference, but this is a major gap.
Yeah.
Depending on which pollster, obviously, you talk to.
That's right, Michael. And frankly, even depending on when you talk to them, this polling has changed drastically since the last time we asked the question. And I want to point out a couple of things, because I think you're raising the right questions here. One is that, when we say 53% of Black people support defunding the police, that means almost half of Black people don't, right? That's the other side of that coin. And so this is a trend line that we see moving, but it does not mean that all Black people want to defund the police. In fact, it means that half of them do not want to defund the police. The second thing I think is important is the timestamp of when we're asking this question. Another question that we asked during this poll was whether or not the police treatment of Black people and minorities was improving since the Chauvin trial. And 56% of Black people said that it has not improved, and they don't expect police treatment of Black people to improve post the trial. And so I think that what we're beginning to see is a frustration with the system, but also, these things aren't happening in a vacuum, right? The attitudes about defunding the police are also happening in a context where we see increase in crime and violence. So in the same poll where a majority of Black people say that they want, that they support defunding the police, when we asked them in the same poll, what were the top issue priorities for their community, we see gun violence and crime rising as a higher priority even than criminal justice reform. And this is new. Crime and violence has not been a top 3 or top 5 issue in the Black community in quite a while here. And so to see violence and crime rising above healthcare during a pandemic, rising above criminal justice reform, it really does show the nuance and the diversity within the opinions of the Black community.
Thank you, Terrence.
Omokongo.
Thank you very much for the work that you're doing in this space. And we've been talking this whole show about honoring Black voices and Black partnerships in corporate spaces. So as we move over to the political side, do you feel like these politicians, Democrat, Republican, are listening to the voices of hit strategies and the work that you're doing? Are they taking Black pollsters seriously? Has it started to change? Where do we stand with that?
We still have a lot of work to do. And if they are listening to us tonight, then someone from the party is going to give us a call, because defund is the single biggest issue that I believe we must solve moving into this next election cycle. It is a tool, a weapon that has been, a term that has been weaponized by the right, and that we now need to reclaim. But there's still significant work to be done here. Black voters remain very optimistic and even very supportive of the Democratic Party. We see Joe Biden reaching 86% approval, Kamala Harris at 78%, and Democrats even at 81%. Joe Biden is nearing Obama level job approval here. You know, Obama was at 94, 95%. So to see Biden really hitting that, hitting marks this high, I think it shows a level of trust and even a cautious optimism in the Black community. But that's also that is in the context of an economic crisis that is affecting Black folks, in the context of increased crime and violence, and in the context of them still demanding pretty significant and swift action on criminal justice. So the optimism and the support is there, but it is broader than it is deep, and Democrats have a lot of work to do.
All right, Avis.
Hi there. So I have a question about the specifics of unpacking the definition of that question on your survey, because I heard that you said that you asked about opinions around defunding, and then I heard you also ask about opinions around reallocating. I was wondering if you had another question on your survey where it just straight up asked people, what do they think defund the police means, and provided a wide range of options so that we can really get a sense of how people unpack it. Because unfortunately, I really don't think it's quite as clear to the populace as we like to think it is.
You're absolutely right. It's not clear, and that's a part of what the left has to do now. It's a part of what Democrats have to do is to begin defining this. You know, the fact of the matter is there are a lot of elements within the defund movement, the defund platform, that are quite popular to the general public. Things like investing in social service, nonviolent first responders, conflict mediation. These are all elements of the defund movement, demilitarization, training in less lethal in less lethal use of force. These are all elements of the defund platform that are actually quite popular amongst the general public, not just Black people and not just Democrats, but amongst the general public. And this is where Democrats have to stop saying, have to find a better response here than being against defund, than treating our activists like opposition, and start saying what they are for. Especially when we can when we can show proof points around the country of how these policies have actually made people safer. And you just don't see this on the right. You know, you don't see Republicans treating pro-life activists or pro-gun activists like they are their opposition. In fact, they are their greatest asset. And so as long as Democrats have this rub with our activists, then we're not harnessing the most energy that we have in the party. And that's a lot of that is going to hinge on how we address this issue.
All right, then, Terrence Wilberry, folks are asking, they want to be able to see the results of this. Where can they actually go read it for themselves?
Absolutely. Please follow us at Hitstrat on Twitter, or on our website, hitstrat.com. And also you can find answers to Avis's question there about how folks are defining defund.
All right, then. Terrence Wilberry, thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Roland. Talk to you soon.
All right, folks, got to go to a break. We come back. A recap of the first weekend of Essence Festival 2021. It was virtual. You had some great performances. We'll be talking with the top editor at Essence, Corey Murray. That's next. Roland Martin Unfiltered.
White supremacy ain't just about hurting Black folk.
Right.
We got to deal with it. It's injustice. It's wrong.
I do feel like in this generation, we've got to do more around being intentional in resolving conflict.
You and I have always agreed.
Yeah.
But we agree on the big piece.
Yeah.
Now, conflict is not about destruction.
Conflict's going to happen.
Every time the life of an unarmed Black man is cut short by police violence, we're outraged. When it happened here, I said enough is enough. Not as a state senator, but as the mother of a Black son. I led Ohio's first bipartisan community police task force to stop racial profiling and address police brutality. We established standards for accountability, hiring, and use of force. I'm Nina Turner, and I approve this message to be a voice for change.
before Till's murder, we saw struggle for civil rights as something grown-ups did.
I feel that the generations before us have offered a lot of instruction. Organizing is really one of the only things that gives me the sanity and makes me feel purposeful.
When Emmett Till was murdered,
Yeah.
that's what attracted our attention.
I'm Kirsten Cinema. I found the time to train and run the Boston Marathon. I think it'll be the most emotional run of my entire life. I found the time to train and complete the Ironman competition in New Zealand. And almost a dozen other races. And I had plenty of time to summit Mount Kilimanjaro. But I just couldn't find the time to come to Washington, do my job, and vote for the January 6th Commission to investigate the domestic terrorist attack on the U.S. Capitol. Kirsten Cinema. Bad for Arizona, bad for America. Let's get a real Democratic senator in Arizona.
Welcome back to Roland Martin Unfiltered. This weekend was the 2021 Essence Festival. It was virtual, as it was last year. Folks, a lot of stuff happened. First of all, it kicked off on Friday, went from Friday, Saturday, Sunday. A lot of performances, a lot of things happening. First off, guest appearances, Israel Houghton, Lucky Day, Jasmine Sullivan. They had a great conversation with my man D Nice as well. Here is a recap of some of the performances right here.
Song. I heard he had a style, and so I came to see him, to listen for a while. Yeah. And there he was, this young boy, a stranger to my eyes, holding my bag with his fingers. Come on, singing my life word, killing me softly with this song. Come on, killing me softly. I know you know it. With this song, with this word. I can't make you sunrise. I can't stand the it's my window. If you come down the road, then I can't stand the sunshine. Sing it if you got it. You can't take the pain, and I can't make your sunrise. If you can't stand the rain, then I can't stand the sunshine. If you can't take the pain, then I can't make your sunrise. I can't stand it. That's my part. It's my window. I can't stand the rain.
For those of you who don't know, my first time ever performing as Tank was at Essence Festival in 2000 at the House of Blues. So if Essence ever rolls around and I'm not there, I feel empty inside. Essence, don't leave me out. Always count me in. This experience for me and every experience at Essence and all of you beautiful people, every time I've come, you always make it absolutely amazing. Incredible. Outstanding.
All right, folks. You can go to essence.com, essencestudios.com, and see all 3 days of the festival. Joining us right now is Corey Murray. She's the deputy editor for Essence Magazine. Corey, what's happening?
Nothing much in you.
Glad to see you. We saw each other at the Dick Gregory screening, Tribeca Film Festival,
Yes, you did.
in New York, Saturday before last. So obviously, it's a little bit different. Experience Essence virtual, but the reality is the show must go on. And
Yes,
so,
it
so take folks through the process of putting all of this together to have this 3-day experience over 2 weekends.
Well, thank you for having me, Roland. So like a lot of big major festivals, we all had to pivot and shift as COVID continued to, wreak havoc, if you will, unfortunately, on a lot of our outside plans. But as we were coming into the 2021, and especially as people, started getting vaccinated, restrictions were lifting a little bit, we were like, well, how can we bring the spirit of New Orleans to the virtual audience? We went down, had several meetings with Mayor Cantrell's office, the city of New Orleans, to see how can we activate down in New Orleans proper and still be safe. And so the plan we came up with is, instead of, unfortunately, we could not be in the Superdome or the convention center. So we decided to find about 4 outside venues for proper ventilation. And then we invited essential workers of New Orleans and then a few other special guests to really keep the audience small, but curated, in that we really wanted to say thank you to a city that has been a home for us for upwards of 27 years. So that's how we looked at it. But then, when you showed that beautiful clip with Jasmine Sullivan, not all of our headliners and artists could come down to New Orleans when we were taping. So while we were able to film Tank in New Orleans down at the Lakefront Arena, we filmed Jasmine Sullivan in her Philadelphia hometown, which was beautiful. So this year, obviously the aesthetic of whether you're on a stage or having a studio performance, we wanted to give our audience a little bit of variation, and and to have that feeling of what it's like to be there, and then of course revving up to be fully back together in 2022.
And obviously that was the performances, but then of course you also still had normally if we were at in New Orleans at the convention center, you have the empowerment stage where you have your panels and things along those lines. Some of them this year were virtual, but you still also did some stuff that you also shot there as well. I caught a little bit over the weekend of the conversation with my man D Nice.
Yes, so that was another thing that we wanted to do, and again, those were for the audiences for essential workers. But yes, it was these beautiful Airstreams we had. I was at St. Augustine's football field, which was, made me nostalgic for my high school days. But more importantly was the conversation I was able to have with D Nice and Angela Yee about pursuing your passion. And the big takeaway I had there is, D Nice was telling his story, and I didn't know that once things kind of, slowed down for him as a hip hop artist, he started designing websites for people. Designed, like Alicia Keys' first album, for Albridge Pack and whatever. So he had kept working, but, fast forward to now, we all love and adore him for Club Quarantine. He looked at me, he said, listen, he said, no one could have ever said this. I am a 50-year-old DJ. That's what I am. And he was like, and look at the life I have right now. And that really stuck with me. So it's like, don't ever count yourself out no matter what your age. But yes, that was a conversation that we had right there in New Orleans. And, D Nice has been such a friend to the brand. He's DJ'd a number of parties for us before Club Quarantine. And now we were able to have a little small set, just a little one at Howlin' Wolf. And that was presented by Coca-Cola. So he did a 30-minute DJ set for us. And Roland, I got to tell you, even with just maybe 40 people that were in there masked up, still when he hit Before I Let Go by Beyonce, well, the remix by Beyonce, we all, got together safely and did that electric slide. So it felt just like Essence Fest all over again.
So one of the things that, it was Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And so now the second weekend is going to take place this weekend. So what you got planned?
Well, of course, we got to do another one with DJ Khaled and friends. He's coming up next weekend. So excited for that. We have Neo. We have A. Marie, who's going to do who we taped a performance again back at Howlin' Wolf. And of course, we have a lot more conversations that we have, a lot of previews and new shows, cast coming. And then something I'm very excited about, and, not to be a plug, but I was able to talk to Robin Roberts about her new show that she has called The Turning Tables with Robin Roberts. So, and again, we're going to have some other rich conversations for our Wealth Empowerment stage, as well as Beauty Carnival, and of course, another revisit of our gospel stage on Sunday.
So again, Friday, let's go over times because a lot of folks only look at for performances 6 to 10, but y'all actually had stuff in the daytime, panels that were taking place as well.
Yes, we were. So on Friday, from 6 to 10 is the Beauty Carnival. And then you can, on Saturday, from 10 to about 1 is our Wealth Empowerment. And then we take a break, and then you come back for Entertainment Access, which is usually between 3 and 6. Take a small break, and then at 7 o'clock, the evening concert series begins. And then on Sunday is a full day of Get Lifted. And I also can't forget our Girls United After Dark series that we do on Friday night as well.
All right, then. All right. Well, Corey, we appreciate it. We'll definitely be checking it out. We have been partnering with Coca-Cola to push as many folks as possible to watch the streams. We've been running Essence throwback videos and photos every day on the show, and we're going to be doing that all throughout this week and this weekend as well. And so last point, this year, last year you guys streamed everything on your YouTube, your Facebook channel, but this year you have it just on essence.com and essencestudios.com, right?
No, we also have it on our Facebook page.
Okay.
Yeah. You also have it on our Facebook page.
So if people go to essencestudios.com, is there still a sign up they got to go through as well for that?
Yes, but what's great about Essence, especially for the stuff that just happened this past weekend, it's already kind of pre-packaged. So once you sign in, that quick sign in, then you can go down and see the stages that you want, and then you can watch the full show. But if you want just those, that Tank performance, if you just want to see Tank, I would head over to essence.com or on our Facebook page, and you can just pick and kind of curate your own playlist of what you want to see. But essencestudios.com has them all.
All right, sounds great. Corey, thank you so very much. Always good to see you. And I can't wait when we're actually back in person in New Orleans, because it's always a great time every July.
I can't wait to see you up on that stage, Roland.
Well, we're gonna have next, and of course, next year, we got to crack out the white linen suit. So we got to do it right if we're gonna be in New Orleans with the heat.
That's right.
All right, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
All right, folks, as I said, we've been showing y'all these various throwback moments. And so here is another Essence Festival throwback moment presented by Coca-Cola.
Lance Gross, what's up, man?
How you doing, man? I'm enjoying this Essence Fest. I love New Orleans.
Yeah, but I see you got shades on 11:30 in the morning.
Yes, I got 1 hour of sleep. It's my birthday today, so I got an excuse.
Oh, birthday today?
Today.
Oh, you gonna be turned up tonight?
Yeah, I was turned up last night.
Did you have fun this weekend, man?
Oh yeah, absolutely. A lot of good music, a lot of good people. This is like a family reunion where you get to connect with people you haven't seen in a while, but it's a beautiful thing.
Well, absolutely. What you working on?
Right now, we're about to go back to film the 3rd season of Star. Also, I'm still working on MacGyver, and I got the Bobby Brown story coming out September 4th and 5th on BET.
All right, then, man, it sounds good.
What's up? I'm Lance Gross, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks. As I said, this weekend, you could catch the second weekend of the Essence Festival 2021, beginning Friday, taking place Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then next Monday we'll have a recap as well. All right, y'all. Rich Dennis is the owner of Essence Magazine. When he bought it, he returned it back to being a Black-owned company, and we caught up with him. This is our second throwback. Where we caught up with him the year after he bought it, talking about what it meant for Essence to return to being a Black-owned media company. You have been on a treadmill set on 12.0 this whole week.
Yes, sir. It's but you know, it's been lovely. It's been we're here fighting for a cause and a purpose, and we're delivering against that, and so it's worth it. So you can yank it up to 13, but only for a little bit.
I mean, I was seeing you. You're like, okay, I gotcha. Okay, hold on. Okay, gotcha. So I mean, this is a new experience for you.
Very new experience. You know, it's not too long ago I was selling soap in the parking lot across from the convention center. You know, to now having to go through all of this and be a part of all of this. It's just, I mean, you can't ask for more than this type of dream to come through, and then to be able to share that with everybody, right? And to be able to take that dream and invest it back so that other people can live out theirs as well. So it's been good.
But when did that hit you? That story you just said, you come in here like a bunch of the folks you see here. Yeah. They just trying to get their hustle on. They got T-shirts and oils and the hats, and they just trying to make it happen, and then go, whoa.
Yeah, you know, it hits you not at one moment, right? It's like all of the things that you have aspired to do, and when you start to do them and you realize, and like, oh, you know, and then, you know, even just like standing here, right? Prior to this year, I'd never even been in a room where there was a red carpet, you know, so I'm like, okay, this is different, right? But it's those types of experiences, and then that triggers in, hey, you know, now the responsibility is to share this experience, right? And to make sure that we're enabling way more people to move from that parking lot to come into this room and to be able to talk to you.
Last question. I saw the email. I woke up this morning. I see the email. And again, as a content creator, I see this deal you guys announced with Queen Latifah.
Yeah. You know, it's very timely, and it's also critically important. You know, we talk about owning our culture, right? And we talk about creating wealth for our community, right? And the most valuable thing that we have left as a community, and the one thing that they can appropriate at times, they can misappropriate at times, but they can never take, is our culture.
I gave an interview where I said, they would say, Roland, how can, when I ran Chicago Defender, Roland, but you know, the Sun-Times, the Tribune, and I said, let me be clear, they can never out-black me.
No, they cannot. And
they can cover our stuff, but they can't out-black me.
They can't out-black you. And what we have to do is monetize our culture, right? And so that's what that fund is about. That fund is about monetizing our culture, creating equity for our content creators, for our makers, so that they can have enough of a base that they can reinvest in themselves and back into other young entrepreneurs that are content creators and that are makers. And so that's what that's about. So we're partnering with Queen Latifah and Shakem, but we're going to have other partners, and we're going to talk.
Right now I want to go to comedian Roy Wood. The last Roy, you there?
In this thing, how you feeling, man?
What's up, brother? What's up going on?
Yeah,
The last couple of years, you've been the on-stage host at Essence Festival.
Yeah, man, I got a chance to get out there and do the damn thing. I know they had Lonnie Love in that mix last year. Shout out to Lonnie. You know, it's about black women. I'm all with a black woman being in that thing. Matter of fact, that was the year I still came back and was able to do a little bit of stuff with Coca-Cola and State Farm as well. So, you know, any excuse to be in New Orleans, whether I'm hosting or not, I don't care, man. I'm there.
So how many years were you the onstage host? How many years?
It was two. And then that third year I came back when Lonnie was hosting, but I was still doing stuff. So there was this weird assumption. And I'm like, no, Lonnie doing it. Because this is what people forget, man. The host, there's an upside and downside to being the host of Essence.
Right. And what's the upside? What's the downside? Go ahead.
I'll give you downside first. The downside to hosting Essence is that there's so much moving and happening the entire night. You get there at 6 o'clock for a concert that starts at 7, that doesn't end until midnight. And every 30 to 40 minutes, there's something else. So you miss most of the show. You can see parts of it. You can see a third of whatever somebody's doing on stage, because the beginning of it, you're doing something else. And the other end, you're waiting to get on stage. So it's hard to really see the show from the front too. That's the other thing. Yeah, you got to see Bobby Brown, but you saw him like this for 40 minutes. You didn't get to see the show from the showroom. Upside to Essence is that when you do sound check earlier during the day, you get to see all of the artists rehearse. And I was privy to the preparation process of so many legendary Black musicians, and to be able, just as a fellow performer, to be able to just sit in the back of the Superdome at 2 PM and just watch Mary J. Blige go through her beats and see how the greatness is created, to see Solange go through those beats and see how it's created, like that was worth it. Like I don't tell Rich Dennis this, but I would have done it for free. Just for that.
No, do not tell Rich you would do anything for free. No. Just call it a free bonus.
No, you ain't finna have me undercutting Lonnie Love. Get Lonnie her money. It's just that part of it was something that I didn't know I would appreciate. The only person that I didn't get to see rehearse was Janet Jackson, because she did all her rehearsing next door at the Pelican Stadium. She didn't even step foot into the Superdome until it was go time. So that one I didn't get to see, but to see even the young artists versus the new artists, the background dancers, and to be backstage and interact with all of these people on differing parts of their showbiz journey. The only thing I can say comes close to that to the talent green room in Essence is Showtime at the Apollo, where they tape a bulk of shows in one night. So it's amateurs and vets, and y'all all in the same green room. Have you been there under that stage, that little tight ass room? It's 10, 15 different types of performers down there. And like, that was always the part that I'll always appreciate about Essence, was being able to see that. Only person I say was half-assed on their rehearsal, because they just know what they was going to do, was Master P.
And actually, some people actually say it was reflected in the performance.
So see, I ain't say that. You said that.
No,
I ain't said that at all.
No, seriously. I got no problem saying it. Essence went toward these curated performances, and it was really kicked up by Diddy and Bad Boy, where it was like tight. It was on schedule. The Master P one was sort of like, it was like a nice, very good cake that was brought out sloppy with icing. I mean, it still tasted good.
Oh no!
But it just, the presentation it didn't win any awards.
Master P ain't doing choreography. I think he also followed Solange that night. So I think that might have been part of the issue too. And Solange is precise down to the exact latitude, longitude on the stage, where Master P is just. So I think maybe it's like chocolate cake and spaghetti. They both delicious, but when you have one right after the other, one of them gonna taste a little off.
I got you. Now, sharing people this, I talk about this all the time, that people really don't understand. They really don't understand the kind of Black love you get at Essence. The average person don't really understand that.
It's the one thing I feel like everyone needs to go to. It's bigger than Mardi Gras in terms of people and revenue. It's bigger than any Super Bowl you can name in terms of people that descend upon, because it's a whole ass another group of people that ain't even inside the stadium that are there. because of Essence and just all
Well,
of the
well, first
events
of all,
during the
it's
day.
only the stadium only holds 70,000. It's 400,000 people who are in New Orleans for the festival.
Correct.
So
And
yeah,
it's I mean, if you can get a hotel room, definitely. Hell, even if you can't, just come down there and figure it out. But it's like a wedding reception with a class reunion with a damn step show concert love, like any beautiful event you can name. It's all of that rolled up into one, and it's just folks walking down, just no barking from the dog, no smog. I remember Charlie Wilson night. Black folks was walking from the Superdome. Everybody had on their white linens, and it was just love. Like people in white. I saw people wearing all white, see other people in all white, and then they would all just walk in a group. And just as you walked along and saw other people in all white, they just walked with y'all. Like, it's just, I don't even know what to compare it to. Like, you know, going to FAMU, the only thing I can really, that I even have perspective on is maybe, you know, a Black college homecoming, you know, and I'll say this with all, you know, with all respect to the Magic City Classic, you know, from my home crib of Birmingham, but not even that compares. The Bayou Classic don't compare, but it has elements of all of those things. You know, and even for white folks, if we're gonna keep it 100, come on down, bring your money, come get you some of this good ass culture. And it's ain't nobody looking at nobody sideways. If you're in an interracial relationship, come on down, ain't no judgment. Bring your black boyfriend.
Now, Roy, I got a good segment.
Why you cut me off? Don't cut me off. No, bring your white girlfriend.
No. Because when you brought that up, I got a great segment because I actually did this, and I should have done it. I should have shot this at Essence, but I'm gonna give it to you. Okay. And this is perfect for one of those Comedy Central segments you do, sort of like the one we did at the convention when I showed out. But we ain't gonna talk about that.
Oh yeah, you showed me up with the pocket square game. But okay, I'm gonna catch your ass one of these days.
No, you're not. So here's what I did. I had a photo. I had a photo of like 3 fine white women, and I would go to brothers and I would say, "Is she fine enough for you to bring her to Essence?" I'm gonna give you that one. So imagine if you had like 3 photos and said, okay, and is she? And one of them, I really messed up this one brother. It was a white woman in a Confederate flag bikini.
Oh no, you can't bring that to Essence. You can't bring that. Look, all right, I take back everything I just said. It's not all love. It's not all barking from the dog. You will get your monkey mouth behind pushed into traffic on Canal Street if you walking around there with some damn Confederate flag, anything on. Matter of fact, wear you one of them tennis hats and just wear it low. That's how you need to show up. But nah, you ain't finna have me comment on that. You ain't finna have my black ass girlfriend. Somebody gonna send this to her and talk about why you was talking about white girls on with Roland Martin.
Wait a minute. Amos Jones and we had the chat. She goes, "How the hell we get on white women?"
I am in a happy home, and me and my black ass girlfriend are happy and content, and you are not going to have me speculating on white women in Confederate bikinis on the way to the Charlie Wilson show. No, thank you.
I'm just saying, y'all were bearing off into very dangerous territory. I'm just saying.
No, we weren't. That's the whole.
We was just talking about black colleges and homecoming, and then here you come.
And then all of a sudden, white women. What?
I said I had a good segment idea for Roy. The whole point is to have a funny segment, Avis. It's called levity. See,
take that seriously.
Black women got to get a sense of humor. Damn it.
I'm just saying.
He said white women bring. He said white women bring your black boyfriends.
Really, when I said, hang on. Hey, baby. Nah, that wasn't me talking about white women. That was Roland. Okay, all right. I love you a lot.
Told ya.
You can get me in trouble.
Roy Wood Jr. Always good seeing you.
Much respect, man.
When you gonna bring Trevor to Essence?
You know what, man? We gotta get that boy down there. This would have been the year because the Daily Show, we just took the summer off until September, so we can we're gonna retool and reshape the show in September with a new look for late night. So this would have been the year. So maybe next year I'll bring him down there.
All right, then. Well, I'm glad the only appearance I've made on Comedy Central, The Late Show, has been on the Roy Wood Jr. segment when he was at the Democratic National Convention. Y'all gotta see it, and if y'all see it, I want y'all to understand we did not practice that. The ending was completely improv.
No, all on camera. Real stuff as always, man. All right, man. Well, I'll see you back in these streets, man. I got that first vaccination. I'm gonna get me all three. I'm trying to collect the whole set, and I'm gonna be back in the streets.
All right, my brother. Thanks a lot,
Dr. Avis. A pleasure.
My pleasure's mine.
All right, Avis, Omakongo, and Michael. I want to get from y'all before we close out your favorite Essence Festival moment.
Oh my God. I'll start. Prince, from beginning to end. I was, the ultimate Prince fan. I've seen him multiple times, but I have to say
that was 2014?
Yes. My favorite show of his was at Essence, where he came out. I swear his initial set must have been a good 30 to 45 minutes. And then he stopped and he was like, okay, warm-up's over. And then he went on. And I was just like, oh my God, I was about to have a fit. So yes, that is my favorite Essence moment.
That was a great set. In fact, that was the only time I've seen Prince perform live. One of my greatest regrets. That was the only time. Yeah, seriously. Only time. But I will say this here. I'll take that back. That was the second time I saw Prince perform live. The first one was at a private party at his house in 2011.
Well, excuse me. Okay.
I'm not trying. I ain't trying to name drop, but I'm just saying. But I will say this here, Avis, because you mentioned that year. He was phenomenal. We got some video. We posted some photos of that as well. I got some great photos. But after that show, he went to the House of Blues. And so his people, Van Jones, and others told me that. So I get to the House of Blues, and they cleared out the whole VIP section. So the House of Blues, Liv Warfield, one of his singers, was performing at the House of Blues. And so I get there and I go, and so the VIP section is like in the balcony. So I go over. Van Jones is on the phone, and Van's like, sit down. Now they had just cleared everybody out. And so Prince was like bouncing around like a bouncing ball. Okay. So he was there, then he disappeared. And so sitting there was actress Google Mbatha Raw. And I was in the movie Beyond Lights. She was a co-star with Nate Parker in the movie. So I sat down, and we had met before at the red carpet, and so we began to talk. Then Prince bops in, and he goes, "Nah, I did see you down there dancing." Because my seats are like on the third or fourth row, right there on the end, center stage. And he turns to Google and says, "He can really dance," and then starts laughing because I was dancing at his house. And we were rocking it. But yeah, you're right. That concert was unbelievable, and it's so sad we no longer have him with us. But we certainly have those memories. Michael, you got a favorite Essence Festival moment?
Sorry,
Michael,
I have two. I'm not sure it was the same year or not. But Doc, you're exactly right about the Prince concert. I wasn't there that year, but spectacular. Two. One was somewhere in the early to mid 90s. New Edition turned it out, and I'm a New Edition fan, so I enjoyed it. The second one, we were walking. I was with my dad. We were walking through. Of course, we had all great VIP walking through everything, and he gets introduced in the little green room thing. And, he walked in and people said, "Ladies and gentlemen, you guys don't even realize Ron Brown, that's our next president of the United States." And I we as a family had heard people talking about it a lot. But then when somebody actually says it in Essence, you're just like, wow, maybe the shit is true. So those are my two instances, New Edition and how they treated my dad.
Okay. All right. Gotcha. Omakongo.
I wish you had asked me first because I'm embarrassed to say that I've never been to Essence Festival.
Whoa. Wait a damn minute.
Black card is in peril.
I know. See, if I was
How in
asked
the
first, we could have got
hell?
to all the Prince stuff later. Y'all would have forgot. But damn, I'm caught. I'm sorry. I'll be there next year though.
How in the hell? All these years, where your ass been?
I have no excuse.
I'm a Congo. Where you from?
I live in DC. I'm born in Boston. I mean, you know, I ain't been far
See,
from.
hold up. That's the problem right there. It's that Boston part.
It's the Boston. Oh, that's my hometown. People from Boston go to Essence Fest. I just was never on the plane. That's
People from Roxbury go to Essence Fest.
I'm from Roxbury. I just missed the plane.
Now your ass from Roxbury. You ain't never. Do you want?
I know. I do.
And see, the plane is a whole other experience because the plane
mute his damn microphone.
Oh my God!
Mute him, brother. No. No, mute him, brother. Hey.
Oh, poor baby. That's okay. We'll take you next time.
Bring his microphone back. I mean, you're gonna bring your ass on here with braids or locks, and you're gonna sit here. You know, you like, you know, super black, and you.
Oh no!
It's just one of those things that happen every year.
Like, it's every year. I mean, you can like plan ahead.
I'm planning ahead now.
It ain't like it sneak up on you.
True indeed. I'm gonna be there. Y'all gonna see me next year. No doubt about it.
Oh man! All right, y'all. Oh my Lord! I got many favorite Essence moments. We've been sharing those on social media for the past week. We got lots more we're gonna share with y'all. Of course, one of my favorites I was telling somebody over the weekend. I came across a video and a photo of me and Leah Chase kicking it during my interview with her. You know, she passed away a couple of years ago, and so it was always when I would go to New Orleans, I would always stop by Dookie Chase and just walk in her kitchen. And she's like, "You always bringing them cameras in my kitchen," and I was like, "That's right. Chef got theme music, and cameras follow me around." And so that's how we always did it. So, y'all, we got some great stuff. So all throughout the week, we're going to be having on Roland Martin Unfiltered Essence Festival throwbacks brought to you by Coca-Cola. We got lots more to share. We got a lot of videos, a lot of photos. And so I can't wait to share with those. We've been sharing 2 a day with y'all. Tomorrow I'm gonna start sharing 3 a day. We got so many, and so we look forward to that. Y'all watch our social media. We've been sharing 6 Essence Festival throwback brought to you by Coca-Cola a day. I think beginning tomorrow I'm gonna start sharing 12 a day. Y'all, that's how much stuff we got. And that's my personal archives. We got unbelievable stuff. And so we're going to start sharing that with y'all. Let me thank Avis, Michael, and used to be Black Omakongo. Matter of fact, I'm no longer going to call Omakongo Dabinga. His new name is Chad.
Oh, I'm going to redeem myself.
So allow me to thank Avis, Michael, and Chad, or Chip, for being with us here on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Gonna earn it back.
Yeah. Thank you so much. First, hold on. Let me see this here. Let me just try this here. So, Omakongo, have you seen the movie Coolie High?
Yes. Okay. Most definitely.
Have you seen the movie Car Wash?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Have you seen the original Shaft?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Have you seen the 5 Heartbeats?
Most definitely. Nothing but love.
Okay. Have you seen Love Jones?
Most definitely. Grooving the right side, trying to be, grooving your left or whatever. I'm reciting the poem from Love Jones. Soundtrack was off the chain. Most definitely.
Actually, I believe you're lying about one of those. You figured, let me just say yes to everything because if you said no, the black card was certainly going to go into receivership. The committee was going to meet when it comes to that. So, but you've halfway redeemed yourself. But your black card is still in review status, considering you have not attended an Essence Festival brought to you by Coca-Cola. So,
I will redeem myself.
Yes, you will redeem yourself, and I will have you on probation until this time next year. All right, folks, thanks a bunch. I appreciate it. Y'all, don't forget, if y'all want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered, please do so by joining our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar you give goes to support the show. With what we do. Last week, man, we had a fabulous two days in Chicago. I'm really looking forward to it. We are completely virtual this week because we are packing up. We have just 2 more days in our offices here, and then we're moving to our new office located on Black Lives Matter Plaza in the nation's capital. So please support us, y'all, by joining our Bring the Funk fan club. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered, PayPal.me/R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo.com/RM Unfiltered, Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Y'all, thank you so very much. Again, I want to thank Coca-Cola for sponsoring our Essence Festival throwbacks. And don't forget to watch the second weekend of the 2021 Essence Festival Live Loud Experience, all virtual, taking place this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, July 2nd through the 4th. Go to essence.com, essencestudios.com. That's the graphic right there. You see it, the 2021 Essence Festival of Culture Live Loud Virtual Experience. Again, Friday through Sunday, July 2nd through the 4th. And next Monday, we will have the recap of this weekend. Cannot wait. Folks, that's it. I'm going to see y'all tomorrow right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Hi!